Yeah, good morning, and thanks already for joining our webinar today. And thanks for taking the time to be with us. With us means my name at Avantor is Frank Krebs. I'm the commercialization manager at Avantor, responsible for the equipment and furniture business in Europe, and a warm welcome from Avantor to you. Before we start, I just want to share with you some housekeeping notes. You don't have to write something down. All materials shown in this conference call will be shared afterwards in a follow-up mailing to all of you, including the link of the recording today. And this will stay for at least 1 year from today onwards on our homepage on webinars at avantosciences.com. So if you have any colleagues which are interested in the same topic, just share the link and they are good to go to hear the recording again. So about the chat today, if you have any questions, there is a short questions and answer area section foreseen after the presentation, but don't hesitate to raise any questions you might have during the webinar in the chat area. So please raise them in the chat area at any time. We are happy to answer them in the chat or within the conference, depending on the nature of the question. With that was my intro for today. So thanks again for joining us, and thanks especially Mr. Eberlein from the company Memmert for taking us through today about our topic Biopharma lab safety, the daily use of temperature and climate control appliances. He will guide us today. He will our host today. So have fun, Stephan. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Frank. Also a warm welcome from my side. My name is Stephan Eberlein. I'm working for Memmert now for 13 years. I'm in front of the camera, but I'm supported behind the camera by my colleague Linda Persinaro from our marketing department. So yeah, I wish you all an interesting webinar, and as Frank has already mentioned, if you have any questions, please don't be shy and ask all your questions you have. In this webinar, we will give you valuable information on safety in the biopharma laboratory when using temperature control and climate chambers. How to load correctly, how to use the various safety functions, the importance of good documentation, and about sterilization and calibration. At the end of the following presentation, we will move on to a live presentation of a laboratory device to look at some important features in detail. Here we have the complete overview of today's agenda. We start with the first steps of what to look out for during the installation and the basic settings that should be made. A particularly important point is the correct loading of a temperature control unit. Besides additional safety features, we will look at an important part of the batch release, the documentation. Sterilization plays an important role in working safely in the laboratory. And of course, the calibration of equipment, and finally, cleaning and maintenance. So starting with the installation, when setting up a unit in a laboratory, it's important to maintain the minimum distances from walls and to ensure sufficient ventilation as specified by the manufacturer. Every unit, regardless of its operation temperature, emits heat energy into the environment. If units are placed too close to each other or to the wall, a rising ambient temperature can affect the temperature control within the unit. A level and horizontal surface is important to ensure that no liquids can leak from the vessels, from the probes placed in the unit. Many appliances are supplied with a tilt protection. This should also be used under all circumstances to secure the appliance to the wall and thus to reduce the risk of tipping over when the door is opened. The operating instructions usually specify the permissible ambient conditions. These should be observed to ensure proper operation of the unit. Temperature and also the permissible humidity play an important role here. Many laboratories are of course air conditioned, but the air conditioning system are increasingly deactivated, especially at weekends, in order to save energy. And this should be taken into account. Particularly in the case of cooled incubators, care should be taken not to expose them to direct sunlight, as this can have a negative effect on the performance of the unit. We often only use a few features of the laboratory equipment we use. Nevertheless, you should familiarize yourself with the basic functions. Many manufacturers offer short training courses directly on site, but you can also get in touch with your Avantor contact person if needed. Such short training courses often reveal product properties that were previously unknown, but which can make your day-to-day work much easier. If only a quick start guide was supplied with the device, please check the manufacturer's homepage for the full operating instructions. Very often there's a QR code mentioned somewhere where you can directly download the full user manual. So after successful setup and installation of the device, some basic settings should be checked. It's important to check the time data, to check the time, because data are recorded from startup. If the time is not set is not set at beginning and only at a later point in time, there may be inconsistencies in the documentation which cannot be corrected afterwards. In addition to the language settings, which can also affect the documentation, many devices offer the option of making basic security settings. These should also be set directly upon commissioning. These safety features can be, for example, the choice between an adjustable over temperature controller, which is then equal to security class 3.1, or an adjustable over temperature limiter, class 2. Each device must be equipped with a mechanical temperature limiter, which is equal to safety class 1. When it comes to the language settings, I would like to ask you the first question during the webinar, in the sense of Frank will do that.
Yes, will come up in a second, Stephan. So just vote. I launched it. First of all, do you share your device with somebody else in the lab? Please choose between yes and no. It's an important question. Just the answers coming in, Stephan. Okay, I think there is already a good picture in there. Yeah, 80% are sharing their devices, Stephan. Yeah, up to now. So yeah. Thanks for voting. So 80% yes and 20% no. I will close the poll. Yeah, we are back to your slides, Stephan.
Thank you, Frank. So now coming to the correct loading. This is a very important step, the correct loading, and under all circumstances, care should be taken to ensure adequate space between the samples. Of course, this serves to improve air circulation and thus optimal temperature distribution, but also ensures the samples are taken safely without bumping into other samples when taking out the samples. Disturbed air circulation and thus impaired temperature distribution has a direct effect on the development of the samples. Again, here we have another poll. Frank, may I ask you to also ask the second question here?
Yeah, coming up, Stephan. So would you like us to check with the correct loading of your device? Is that a yes or is that a no? Is that okay with you, how you load your device, or could you imagine that some help is needed sometimes? Okay, majority voted Stephan, so 55% sees a real sense behind for checking their devices of the correct loading and 45% no. Thank you for voting to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if you have any questions in regard to the correct loading, please feel free to contact us or Avantor to get help in that topic. Choose the right insert for your application is also very important. Depending on the type of load, you should already decide on the right insert when buying the device. Perforated shelves offer a large contact surface and are therefore more suitable for smaller samples. Grids offer better air circulation and thus temperature and humidity distribution, and are in most cases more suitable for larger loads. Please always pay attention to the maximum load weight per grid or shelf. This is specified usually by the manufacturer. This is actually around 20 to 30 kg per shelf or grid in standard. Many manufacturers also offer reinforced versions, which then have a load capacity of up to 60 kgs. The use of these reinforced inserts often requires a special interior design, which cannot be retrofitted later. So the maximum load should ideally be known when purchasing the device already. Another point when we're talking about the correct loading is the use of a bottom drip tray in case of wet or moist feed material to avoid some risk, like for example contamination. Increased humidity in the incubator can promote the growth of undesirable bacteria, fungi, or other microorganisms that can lead to contamination. Also, a less growth rate. Excessive humidity can reduce the evaporation of moisture in the sample, which can slow down or even prevent the growth of microorganisms. Further, the damage of the samples can happen. Excessive humidity can also cause sample to become damaged or unusable, especially if they are sensitive to moisture. For example, humidity can damage cell cultures or affect DNA samples. If a bottom drip tray is used, it can be emptied sectorally and regularly. If samples are placed too close to the heating elements, they may be exposed to a higher temperature than desired. This can lead to uneven growth of the samples and affect the integrity. If samples are placed too close to the heating elements, there is also a risk that they will dry out or dehydrate. Please note that the standard climatic heating chambers and incubation chambers are generally not suitable for storing concentrated acids, alkalis, and easily flammable or explosive loads. Avanto offers special devices for storing these sensitive substances. Especially with devices with forced air circulation, it is important that powder samples are always be properly covered to prevent parts of the samples from being unintentionally distributed in the interior. Door opening should always be as short as possible. That's why incubators, but also climate chambers, which can regulate not only temperature, but also humidity, are equipped with an inner glass door. The recovery times after the door is open for temperature is usually faster compared to the time it takes to reach humidity levels and, if necessary, gas concentrations again. Therefore, especially with this type of device, the doors should be only opened briefly to keep the impact on the samples as low as possible. Frank, there is another poll which we can open here.
Yes, exactly. That's the right timing, Stephan. So we are curious again. So we need your opinion on that. Do you know how to ensure optimal temperature, homogeneity, and conformity? So please share your opinion, your decision right now. It's a yes or it's a no. And don't be shy, it's not an issue if that is a no. Okay, Stephan, I think it's already a clear picture. And thanks for your honesty. It's 82% no. And I guess that is a very important answer. So thanks again for sharing your answers with us. Thank you. Stephan, back to you. It's interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So after the correct loading, I just would like to emphasize on some additional safety features. We often want to be informed about the progress of our samples to ensure that the experiments and investigations are being carried out properly and to identify and rectify any potential problems early. Regularly monitoring the progress of samples can also help to speed up results and save time and resources. Early notification in the event of a deviation or error ultimately saves time and money. Sometimes it's also possible to move samples from a faulty device to another device in order to prevent the total failure of the batch. The options vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, so it's also worth talking to your Avantor contact person to get more details about additional safety features offered by the manufacturers. And sorry for keeping you so busy, Frank, and also the participants. One more poll can be asked here.
Exactly, happening on your screen, dear participants. Do you want to use an app on your mobile phone for monitoring your device? Or are you even using a mobile phone in your lab? So please choose, would that be a yes or is that rather a no? So that is a 60-40 result. 60% is no and 40% is a yes, Stephan. With that, and thanks again for participating in that poll, I close the poll. Back to you, Stephan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very, very interesting answer. Thank you for sharing. So now, having looked at the standard process of a batch release in biopharma, here's an overview of the individual steps of a typical batch release process, from batch manufacturing to analysis, approval, and documentation. The batch release in the biopharma laboratory is a critical step to ensure that the biopharmaceuticals produced are safe, effective, and meet the high requirements of the relevant regulatory authorities. I would like to place a special focus on the area of documentation on the next slide. Careful and accurate documentation is a prerequisite for ensuring the quality of products and services in the biopharma laboratory. Documentation makes it possible to understand at any time who has carried out which work steps, what results have been achieved, and what measures have been taken to solve problems. Furthermore, accurate documentation is also prerequisite for compliance with the regulatory requirements, such as GMP guideline or GLP standards. All devices should have corresponding data loggers for all parameters controlled by the device as standard. In addition to data recording, reading out the data and displaying it in the respective software should of course be also very user-friendly and self-explanatory as possible. The device software should be able to convert data into different formats like Excel, CSV, or PDF. The application in biopharma laboratories may require to use an FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant software, which offers, amongst others, the possibility of electronic signatures, audit trail, but ensures also the electronic records are stored and archived correctly, and that access to these data is adequately controlled. FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant software can help increase the traceability of processes and results of the tests. That means who has carried out which work step and what result have been achieved. One more poll from our side in regards to documentation and data safety.
Yes, that's indeed, Stephan, a very important topic for the biopharma industries. I guess there will be a lot of answers right now. Would you like to know more about data safety? Is that a yes, or do you already have all information you might need, especially when it comes to the FDA Part 11? Is that all known, or is there still some questions to be answered? Some results coming in, just a couple of seconds. Okay, that is a clear picture as well, Stephan. So 70% yes, they want to know a bit more about data safety, which I can imagine 30% are sufficiently supplied, I guess, already. So thanks for sharing your answers. Back to you, Stephan.
Thank you. Especially when it comes to 21 CFR Part 11, we have some specialists here also at Memmert, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions in regard to that. So moving on to the next point, which is the sterilization, which is particularly important in the biopharma laboratory because many of the experiments and processes carried out there take place on a very small scale and can therefore be very sensitive to contamination. Even minor contamination can affect the outcome of an experiment or even lead to a complete breakdown of the process. The laboratory must ensure that all equipment, surfaces, media, and solution that come into contact with the cells or microorganisms are throughoutly sterilized. A strict sterilization standard is critical to ensure that biopharma products are safe, effective, and meet the stringent requirements of the relevant regulatory authorities. What are the risks of cross-contamination? One is the alteration of results. If samples in a laboratory are contaminated, the results may be falsified and not representative of the actual properties of the sample. This can lead to wrong decisions being made, for example, in the release of medicine. And of course, also loss of samples and data. Contaminated samples may have to be discarded, resulting in loss of valuable samples and data. This can waste time, money, and resources. To prevent contamination in biopharma laboratories must implement strict contamination prevention and control measures. This includes compliance with GMP and hygiene standards, validation of sterilization processes, and regular inspection of laboratory equipment and environmental for contamination. Many temperature control units in the laboratory have a sterilization process included in the software of the device as standard. For example, in CO2 incubators, we find these sterilization routines very often. Sterilization of the interior of the device at atmospheric pressure takes place from a temperature starting at least 160 degrees for at least 2 hours. However, normal sterilization temperatures are also 180 degrees, in which case the sterilization time is then reduced to 30 to 60 minutes. The frequently asked question when it comes to sterilization is when should the interior of a, for example, CO2 incubator should be sterilized? This question is difficult to answer and depends on various factors. Basically, you can say the interior should be, the interval should be fixed by your own SOPs. However, a change in personnel or sample is always a good time to start a sterilization routine. Of course, the interior should always be sterilized as soon as contamination is suspected. Please note, a sterilization process must always be validated and documented. When talking about sterilization, it's also worth taking a brief look at the other types of cleaning. There is mechanical cleaning. This involves the mechanical removal of dirt and contaminants using detergent and water. This is the first stage of cleaning and can often be sufficient to ensure adequate cleanness. Chemical cleaning, this involves the use of detergents and chemicals to remove bacteria, viruses, and other microbial contaminations. For example, alcohols or formaldehyde can be used. Disinfection, this kills all pathogenic microorganisms on surfaces and equipment, but some bacteria or viruses can survive. Here too, there are various methods such as chemical disinfection, UV light, or ozone treatment. Especially in the case of hot air sterilization, which represents the highest level of cleaning, it is important to ensure that this is only carried out at temperatures starting at 160 degrees Celsius and above. Other methods, such as decontamination, never achieve the same level of sterility. Another important factor in ensuring the safe work in the laboratory is the accuracy of the temperature control unit. Regular calibration of the device by qualified staff is very important. There should be continuous monitoring between the calibrations by additional temperature sensors, like, for example, thermometers or external data loggers. How such a calibration is usually carried out. The temperature display on the unit is compared with the reference sensor. If there is a deviation between the two values, the display on the unit is then adapted to what the reference sensor shows and readjusted. It's important to pay attention to the accuracy of the reference sensor. This should be in any case correspond to the sensor which is installed in the device. The unit should have an easy calibration function to readjust any temperature difference between the reference sensor and the controller. In any case, a factory calibration certificate from the manufacturer should be included in the standard scope of delivery. Many manufacturers might offer optional entry ports when ordering a chamber, facilitating the insertion of sensors. Entry ports are usually installed on the side or the rear wall of the appliance. However, a few manufacturers are also offering the option of freely defining the position of an entry port. The entry port should always be closed by means of a plug or a flap when the unit is in operation. So last but not least, cleaning and the regular maintenance. Regular cleaning and maintenance is necessary for the safe operation of the unit. Unfortunately, the point of regular maintenance in particular is neglected, but this can have a negative effect on the experiment carried out in the device. We therefore recommend talking to the manufacturer or the seller, Avantor, about annual maintenance contracts. Please note, never use pure water to clean the appliance. Low conductivity, the unit might get rusty. It is important that stainless steel surfaces in the biopharma laboratory are cleaned and maintained regularly to maintain the protective coating and prevent contamination of samples. So with this last slide about cleaning and maintenance, the presentation, the theoretical part is over, and I'm just waiting for the sign of Linda. Okay, already there. Perfect. So what we have here is a Memmert CO2 incubator, which is already set up and or installed. So having a look to the controller here, it's a twin display controller in that case. And what we have seen in the presentation was the basic settings at the beginning when starting to work with the appliance. Here, for example, we have the possibility of setting different languages, but also the time can be set here very easily. So this is an important factor just to make sure that the data which are collected are correct, and the documentation part of it is also done in the right way. At the end, we were talking about calibration. Here, I would also like to show you how easy it is with some units to do the calibration. So if there was any difference between the reference sensor and the display temperature was observed during the calibration process, we can easily adjust these temperature differences here directly on the controller. So that makes it very, very easy to make sure that the appliance is always showing the right and correct temperature. So later on, we were talking about the correct loading, and here I would just like to show you the difference between a stainless steel grid and a stainless steel shelf. As you can see, the grid offers a better temperature distribution and air circulation, and the shelf is better for the smaller samples. We have a very, very flat surface of these shelves. With Memmert appliances, the grids coming in standard delivery, but it is possible to choose between grids and shelves at any time. So we were talking about the correct loading. Just would like to show you the interior of this incubator here. In that case, we have the additional inner glass door. This type is also equipped with smaller openings, just to make sure that the recovery time is as fast as possible. And what you can see here is the, let's say, perfect loading. We have enough space, enough distance between the samples. We are also keeping distance to the side walls and to the rear wall. A CO2 incubator from Memmert is equipped with a 6 sides heating, so all the 4 sides, the rear wall as well as the glass door is heated. So we should make sure that we always keep the distance to the side walls. We're talking about a so-called 10% rule, which means that a distance of 10% of the complete volume should be kept from the side walls, from the rear wall, and from the door from the front. Safety features. Of course, there are standard safety features coming with the device, but we also have talked about additional safety features. I'm just turning the incubator here to show you some additional interfaces which are available, just to make sure that all the alarm messages are recorded and probably given to another monitoring system. Here we have a so-called mobile alert box. These boxes are offered by many manufacturers to receive alarm messages on your mobile phone if desired. And one point which is important when it comes again to reading out the logged data is the interface here. This is an Ethernet connection, so it should always be very easy to connect the devices to the local area network to read out the data. For this unit here in particular, we also have a second possibility of reading out data very easily, which is a USB interface here at the front panel. So directly on the controller, it is possible to read out data, and this makes it very, very easy. In some units, there is also a possibility to check the graph of temperature or humidity or CO2. When you're arriving after the weekend back in the laboratory, you would like to know what happens during the weekend with the machine without reading out the complete internal data logging system. Then you can just have a look here on the graph directly. When it comes to connecting a device to a network, it should be also very easy to do the IP address setting. Also here, directly in the controller, we have the possibility of setting an IP address, and integration of these units is very, very easy to do. We talked about sterilization. Sterilization as an important factor when working in the biopharma lab. I mentioned already that many CO2 incubators are equipped with a sterilization routine directly on the controller. In that case, we have also installed a so-called sterilization program, which can be chosen directly here. For this machine, it is a 180-degree sterilization for 2 hours. Other appliances like standard heating incubators often do not offer a sterilization routine. With our standard heating incubators, we have also an additional feature of a 160-degree hot air sterilization during the hot air sterilization for 4 hours. Yeah, I think we covered as much as possible here. Thank you again for joining this webinar today. I hope some of the information were helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us or your contact person at Avantor. And I would like to hand over again to Frank. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hand taken, Stephan. So thanks for putting us through and very valuable content you shared. Already a big thank you to you. I'm just checking the questions. I think we answered already a couple of them. There's one question happening on my screen, which we should take offline with the customer. It's about the data safety. So just waiting a couple of seconds if other questions coming in. Yeah, quite good in time, Stephan. Yeah, so but that seems not the case for the moment. So yeah, thanks again, Stephan, for putting us through. Just as an outro, you will receive the recording link in a follow-up email guided by all materials which have been shared during that conference. And as I said and shared before, if some colleagues are interested in that topic, please share either our email or visit www.wr.com, click on webinars, and then click on the equipment, and you can just share the recording through that web page as well. Thanks again for taking the time and spending the time with us, and keep and stay tuned and visit even after a couple of days our webinar chapters. There might be other webinars for interest for you as well. So thanks again, and have a great rest of the day, and take care as always. Bye-bye and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.